All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're hosting our guest author, Wayne Lee, and this is our Writer Beyond Border program. So, Wayne Lee is a writer, editor, and teacher who is based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Lee's poems have appeared in the Tupelo Press, Slipstream, The New Guard, the Lowestoft Chronicle, Writer's Digest, and other journals and anthologies. He was awarded the 2012 Fischer Prize and has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and 3 Best of the Net Awards. His collection, The Underside of Life, was a finalist for the 2014 New Mexico-Arizona Book Award. His collection, Buddha's Cat, was published by Whistle Lake Press in May 2024. His memoir, Service Husband, A Caregiver's Journey Through Disability, Suicide, and Recovery, is forthcoming from Mercury Heartling in January 2025. And his collection, Dining on Salt, 4 Seasons of Test, is forthcoming from Cornerstone Press in April 2025. Lee is also the founder and host of an online Tuesday poetry practice community as well that takes place virtually every Tuesday. And I'm going to hand this over to our presenter.
Thank you, Omar, and thank you, Surabhi, for inviting me. So I'm speaking to you as a fellow writer who has not had an easy time getting published. I suppose we all know people. Actually, my late wife, Alice, wrote a memoir, and it got accepted by the very first publisher she contacted. I haven't been quite so fortunate. My journey has been long. Just a little background. So I've been writing poetry since I was 17. It's been a passion all my life. And but I didn't publish my first chapbook until I was 59, and I didn't publish my first full-length collection until I was 64. I was a journalist for a long time. I also worked in public relations and for the government in public information. I've been a teacher. I've worked as an editor. I still do. I edit people's books and poems. So let's see, I've got a lot of notes here. My forthcoming poetry book is coming out in April. It's called Dining on Salt, 4 Seasons of Septets, which that journey was actually before the Service Husband journey. And that one, I decided I was going to try to win some big contest and get my manuscript published that way. That's a prestigious way to get published if you can do it. But I didn't win any of those contests over a 12-month period. And then I decided to just approach indie publishers directly. And I contacted 16 publishers before I finally found a university press, Cornerstone Press, that again is going to be publishing it in next April. My memoir, that's what I'm here to talk about. It is called Service Husband, A Caregiver's Journey Through Disability, Suicide, and Recovery. And as you can tell by the title, it tackles some tough subjects. I was caregiver for my wife for 20 years. She had a degenerative neuromuscular condition, and it got worse and worse, and she eventually ended up in assisted living, and we had always planned a beautiful crossing over ceremony. We moved to Oregon to take advantage of the assisted suicide law there, but she was in too much pain one day and she couldn't wait, and she took her life unexpectedly. So as you can imagine, it was a enormous shock. It was a major trauma in my life. And so then I had to set about recreating my life and setting off on my healing journey. I had known as a writer, I had known for many years that I wanted to write a book about being a caregiver because caregiving is really hard work. And caregivers need all the support they can get. And I knew that I was learning life lessons that would help other people. But I wasn't able to really start writing about it until January of 2020. And then I enrolled in a 9-month program called Right to the Finish, which is run by Sean Murphy and Tanya Cassell in Taos, New Mexico. And it's designed to complete what Anne Lamott likes to call your shitty first draft. And I did, and it was really shitty. And over the next 3 years, I continued to work on it. And sometimes it was so hard. I actually had a couple breakdowns. It was just really, really hard work. But it was so beneficial, so healing. The writing process and the healing process benefited each other. And so then that was yeah, that was through January through September in 2020. And then during that time, I completed 8 drafts of the book, which included hundreds of rewrites of individual chapters. Then starting that spring in 2023, I started researching how to get it published, how to get my manuscript published. The first thing I needed to do was to write my book proposal. I had written book proposals before, and it's a big job. My book proposal ended up, I think it was 36 pages or something, and that was without sample chapters. So it's an art in itself, writing the book proposal, writing the query letter. Those are essential. You're never going to get past the gate through the transom without a winning query letter. And then if they ask for the book proposal, they're not going to ask for the manuscript if the book proposal doesn't check all the boxes. So that and synopsis as well. Then I was still like not sure really how to go about what I really wanted to do. I decided to aim high. I decided that for this book, unlike poetry books, which tend to have pretty small audiences for those of us who aren't famous, I knew that my book potentially has a huge audience: caregivers, suicide survivors. Those are the 2 main people who deal with chronic pain, who deal with neurological disease, with degenerative diseases, all those topics. There are millions and millions of people that I knew I could speak to, but I didn't know. I thought, well, what I want to do is find an agent. I have never had an agent. And I found out landing an agent isn't an easy task. I contacted, well, so to get some help, I hired a consultant, a former agent and writing author coach named Mark Malatesta, Malatesta. His company is called The Best-Selling Author. His website is markmalatesta.com. And I can't recommend Mark highly enough. I think it was only $100. It might have been $200 for a 1-hour consultation. And I don't have a lot of money, like a lot of writers. So I haven't been able to just hire a PR firm and have everything taken care of. So I hired Mark, and he had me. So he sent me a questionnaire to fill out before the consultation, and it had 60 questions asking me everything from my strengths and weaknesses, my dreams and plans, my professional experience, my education, publication history, my inspiration for the book, my target audience, my competitive advantages, the uniqueness of my idea and book, comparable titles, my marketing plan, my social media platform, if I have testimonials, if I have a network of family, friends, and colleagues who can support me, how big is my email list, professional affiliations and connections, my website, my best case scenario, my preferred type of publisher, my ideal agent, my biggest obstacle, and on and on. It was even if I hadn't sent that to Mark and got feedback, just that process of filling out that questionnaire was incredibly helpful for me. But I did fill it out, and when I filled it, I ended up with 78 pages that I sent to him. And incredible to me, he actually read the entire thing before our 1 hour consultation. Oh, and he also had me send my book proposal, my query letter, sample chapters, the synopsis, the chapter outline, and send all of that. And he read all of that as well. So he's a real speed reader, I tell you. So then I did the 1 hour consultation, and he talks really fast, which is really good because he got a lot of information into this 1 hour call. And he helped me incredibly so much hone my query letter. For one thing, most query letters, we're always taught, start with a hook, start with something that's really going to grab their attention, a real pithy quote or a synopsis, a conflict point in the narrative or something like that. Well, he thought my strength was actually my background, my long career as a writer, to right at the top to establish myself as a credible writer before I pitched the book. So that's what I did. And I don't necessarily recommend that for everyone if you don't have that kind of writer career strength. But anyway, that's what he asked me to do, and that's what I did. He gave me a lot of real good advice about fine-tuning my book proposal. Let's see. He also made what turned out to be a key suggestion about reorganizing the opening of my book. Just as the opening of a query letter is essential, you have something like 10 seconds to get an agent's attention or a publisher's attention. They get thousands of queries. And if you don't grab their attention immediately, you're gone. Well, the same is with a manuscript. If you're fortunate enough to have an agent or a publisher ask for your manuscript and you send it, if you don't grab their attention right away, gone. So he told me that I should start with one of the key conflict points in the book. And so I devised a two-tier, a double chronology, two different timelines, starting with this one key conflict point and then doing a flashback to when Alice and I first met, and then back and forth for a few chapters until those two timelines converged, and then it became a unified narrative from there. That was a key suggestion from him. Yeah, so all of those things helped me so much. So then starting in July and all the rest of the summer in 2023, it was really a full-time job for me. I researched, identified, and queried 261 agents who represent memoirs and are open to submissions, open to new clients. So I sorted them at Mark's suggestion. I sorted them into first, second, and third waves. So again, I shot high. I started with the most prestigious agents at the most prestigious agencies that are open to submissions. And I queried 141 of them. And each one of them requires a little different. Some of them just want a query letter, some want a query letter and a proposal, some just want a query letter and your marketing analysis or marketing plan. Some want an outline, some want sample chapters. You have to read their requirements very, very carefully and provide them with exactly what they want, or you're gone. So that was that was a lot of work. And let's see. So out of that massive effort, only 2 agents actually requested to see my manuscript, and they both said no. So that was disappointing. So then by that point, I had heard enough feedback. Some agents actually took the time to give me some constructive feedback. And the most common thing I heard was, you don't have enough of a platform. And that became glaringly true. And these days, what that means, as you might know, what that means more than anything else is, are you active on social media? Do you have a massive following on social media? And I didn't, and I still don't, because I haven't really liked social media very much. And I've only been like an amateur dabbler on Facebook and stuff. And it takes years and years to really build up yourself on social media. So it was apparent that I was not going to be able to build my social media presence / platform quickly enough to get an agent. So then I shifted gears that August, and I started contacting indie publishers. So then I did a lot of research. Oh, okay. Well, at the same time I was contacting agents, I was also contacting comparable authors. I identified 76 memoirs on comparable topics, on caregiving or suicide survival or prevention. I queried 76 authors and asked them if they would be willing to read my advanced reader copy or give me a blurb. 14 said yes. I identified 66 different organizations that have websites that serve caregivers, suicide survivors, people with disabilities, people with chronic pain, and spouses of all the above. I queried all of them, as well as and asked them if for endorsements, or if I could make podcast appearances, or if they would publish excerpts. So far, 12 of those have said yes. I identified 109 celebrities who have spoken out about suicide. 32 responded, only 1 said yes. Let's see. So it's a jungle out there. So then anyway, I decided that I really needed to shift gears and contact publishers. So then I identified 117 publishers that are open to submissions, and again had to follow each of their very specific requirements. Only 2 publishers actually asked to read my manuscript, and they both said no. So finally, after 40 no's, in June 2024, I got a yes from a very small hybrid publisher in Silver City, New Mexico, called Mercury Heartlink Press. And it turned out the publisher had lost her husband, and she was in her grieving process, and she resonated very strongly with my manuscript. She believes in the project. She believes in me. She said she cried often. She read it like straight through in a weekend. She was so engrossed in it, which was really nice to hear for me. Let's see. So then I had to shift gears again, and I kept contacting podcasters and publishers and talk show hosts. 5 talk show hosts have agreed to have me on their shows, radio and TV, and I'm going to continue doing that. I've had excerpts published in a couple of publications that serve those populations, and I will continue trying to get other things published online to coincide with the publication in late January of the book. I'm also now contacting conferences that organizations that hold annual conferences about appearing as a speaker and perhaps doing workshops. And my plan is, after publication, I don't have the budget to just set out on a big national tour. So I'm picking and choosing where I can go, and contacting bookstores. A lot of bookstores want to be contacted months ahead of time to set up readings. So I've been busy contacting bookstores, and my plan is, when I do readings in different cities, I'm also going to offer workshops on grief, on suicide recovery, on perhaps writing about the above. So this has been like juggling with 100 balls in the air at the same time. I haven't written. I've got ideas for a couple of other books I want to write, but I haven't had time to do any writing for the past 18 months. This has been a full-time job. I continue writing poems. I've written 6 poems in the last 3 years, but it's a huge job, and everyone might not need to jump through all of these hundreds or thousands of hoops that I've been jumping through, but some of you might, and it takes perseverance. It takes belief in yourself and in your manuscript. If people kept saying, well, this is so hard, why don't you just self-publish? Well, there are stigmas with self-publishing. There are bookstores that won't let you do readings if you're self-published. It's a lot better nowadays than it used to be, but there's more prestige and there's more connection with actually having a publisher, even though indie publishers such as Mercury Heartlink, almost all of them do zero marketing for you, promotion. It's all up to you. It's all up to me. I have to set up everything. That's not a knock on my publisher. I love her dearly, but that's the way hybrid publishers are set up. That's the reality in the publishing world today. And even big 5 publishers, unless you're like one of the handful, of super famous people, and I don't even know if they do that for them, but they don't even do all the promotion like they used to do in the good old days when they would say, oh yes, we're paying for everything to set you out on a national tour. That doesn't happen anymore. That's a pipe dream. So I've got to do it all myself, and like most of the writers I know, I hate self-promotion. I hate marketing. I don't want to do that. I want to write. That's what I love to do. But the reality is that not very many people are going to read my book if I don't do the marketing. So this has been a tough sell to myself. And I realized a couple months ago, grow up, Wayne. This is the business of writing. I've been a writer 45 years, professional writer, but I've never really engaged, committed myself to the business of writing. And if you're going to be a successful writer who reaches mass audiences or even anything bigger than tiny audiences, you've got to embrace the business side of writing. It's a bitter pill, but it's necessary. So with all of that, I'm open to questions. Thank you. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much, Wayne. This is like great information. Thank you for being so honest and sharing all of this. It's really, I wish it wasn't so hard for all of us writers, but thank you for being so honest. I do like to take a group picture before we go into the Q&A. So if people can switch on their cameras and change their settings to gallery view, be nice. Omar will come in and help me click the picture.
Yes, I'll send this photo here. If you'd like to join in, you're more than welcome to turn on the camera. We'll be sending this afterwards via email. All right, give everyone a second to get set up, and we'll take this photo. All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
I'm going to ask one more. If you have your copy of your book, Buddha's Cat, do you have it right there, Wayne?
Service husband?
The poetry book that you just published. You have
Buddha's Cat.
Yeah.
Yes, I have Buddha's Cat. Yeah, this came out in May.
There you go. All right.
Poetry, chapbook. They're all poems that were inspired by cats and dogs. So I'm currently.
Yeah. Do you want to hold it up? Let me snap a real quick picture.
Yeah,
with
can
it.
you hold it up for a picture, please?
Feature it. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everybody. I will be sharing this. Yeah.
So this is time for the questions. And I saw somebody, Billy Brown, he says he's would be honest to host you at a fixed and free featured reading in 2025. So there you go.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you for all you do.
So this is the time for any questions you have for Wayne about his writing process, about anything that he spoke. Please, I think they can unmute, Omar. They can?
Yes.
Or
yes.
type it up in the chat. Yeah. Whatever.
Unmute yourself if you want to ask any questions. I've also posted the link for the Malatesta website down below as well. It's a resource that Wayne had shared with us all. And I've also linked to Wayne's website down here. Let's see, it should be in the chat. And I found this as well. As we discussed in the introduction, Wayne hosts Tuesday Poetry Practice every week. And I'm going to share that link down below if anyone's ever interested in joining. Sounds like a fun event.
Let me just say a quick word about that, Omar. Yeah, poetry and meditation are two of the pillars of my life, and they've always been twin practices for me. They're both about being present, being aware, and they serve each other. And I decided, actually in meditation, I got the idea to start an open group where we do meditation and use a prompt to then access and write poetry. So that's important for me, and I'd love to have any of you join me. It's every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Mountain Time for an hour. And if you would like to be on my mailing list, please send me your email and I'll add you to my list.
I have a question in the chat from Kathleen. Have you kept track of your process in writing? Is this available on the website? It'd be good. It'd be a good trail breadcrumbs for others to follow.
I haven't. You mean put it as like a podcast kind of thing on there?
Have you kept track of the process in writing? I'm not entirely sure. Let me see. Are you talking about like the writing process, how you structure yourself?
I haven't. Frankly, my website is not very good. I don't spend a whole lot of time. I don't do a podcast, and I have essential information on their readings and things, but I need help with my website too.
Yes, she had asked, yes, like a podcast, outline of the steps you talked about, your journey through getting published.
That's a good idea. Thank you
Yeah,
for. I'll do that.
you can definitely include today's program presentation once we upload it to your blog post or your website. I know that previous authors have taken the opportunity to use that, just as another way to get people to kind of get an insight kind of
Yeah,
about your work, kind of like the process behind, your journey as an author and, the multiple venues you've had to explore. Because I feel like as I'm an avid reader, I'm not necessarily a writer myself, but just hearing how much goes into publishing definitely makes me appreciate, whenever I'm able to get a hold of a book or a title, especially from indie authors, I'm like, I wonder like what their journey was, just realizing like as you mentioned, everyone talks about like a social media presence, everyone talks about how you really have to market yourself, just to get the word out about your works.
yeah, yeah. I think so far I've set a record in a number of areas from anyone else I've talked to about their journey. But you got to have a thick skin, and I've thickened my skin through the decades because I get, probably 95% of my poems I send out get rejected. And I've had poems published that I've sent out over 100 times over decades. I had a poem published recently that I wrote in 1995, and so you've got to have that kind of perseverance and just not take no for an answer.
Thanks. Manjusha has her hand raised for the question. Is she able to unmute, Omar? Or should
Yeah,
she type?
should be able to mute. Let me see if I
Oh,
can.
yeah, there you go.
Hi,
Hi.
can you see me, hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Ved. Thank you so much. That was such a good talk you gave us. Some part of what you just said has addressed my question actually. I wanted to know, how you could just keep at it and go on, despite all the rejections, because fear of rejection is a big thing that keeps me from sending in my book.
Yeah. Well, I went to a sales seminar back in the 70s by a famous salesman named Zig Ziglar. And he said, if you wait for all the lights to turn green on your way to town, you'll never leave home. So you've just got to be willing to send it out there. I don't know how, maybe it's a spiritual thing. Maybe you just need to be centered in yourself enough and believe in yourself enough that it doesn't matter if they say no. You just keep sending it out there. It's a little bit like dating. If you've ever been single and been out there on the dating market, you got to kiss a lot of frogs, right?
Yes.
And receive a lot of rejection. And it's so easy to have your heart broken. Dating ends, the publishing
Right.
process. But you're not going to get there if you don't try. If you believe in yourself and in your work, in your writing. And for one thing, a lot of times when when I receive rejections, most of the time they're just form letters, but occasionally I'll get really constructive feedback. And it's that constructive feedback that can really, coming from a professional source, from an agent or a publisher, saying, I love the idea, I love the book, but you should try this. It's when you get those rare constructive criticisms from someone that is gold, and that can really help you. But you're not going to get published if you don't query. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much, Wayne. Very inspirational story.
Good luck, Mandisha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else? I must have explained it too thoroughly.
As Wayne had noted earlier, I do appreciate that you talked about how you would reach out to these contacts, whether it was authors, whether it was podcasts, whether it was talk shows, like you explore all the options, all the venues, which I think is a great approach. Because you never know who might be, a viewer of the podcast, a viewer of these shows. You never know what audiences are engaged into these different venues, which just further increases awareness, further increases, putting yourself out there. I feel like, from a library perspective, offering programs and creating things and hoping that they're successful also requires some level of work. We have to reach out to your community. We have to, make the effort to kind of like push yourself up into this point too. Just feel comfortable trying, even if it fails. I think even if you get a reaction, it's like a learning. You get something out of it, as you mentioned before. Some of the responses you've gotten have given you constructive criticism, constructive feedback that you can just use and adapt to your future ventures. Oh,
Yeah.
I think I have a question from our friend Billy
Okay.
here.
Did you call on me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, greetings to my friend Wayne Lee. I've known him for many years and have hosted him and his wife Alice at my poetry readings. And I also attended Wayne's Tuesday event, online 1 hour event, and I recommend it strongly. And I also want to just say to Wayne, having had a similar tragedy in my life, my daughter was killed in a car crash. The way you've dealt with it, I just really admire what you've done and the perseverance and the work that you've done in response to that. At one time, I had a dream of publishing a book about my daughter and what happened to her, but I gave up within a few weeks. And so it's just very inspiring to hear everything that you've done. So thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Billy. And it is, yes, we bonded in our grief as brothers, really. I would not have done all of this had I not believed that my book would be helpful to people. That is why I wrote the book. That is why I worked so hard to get it published, and that is why I will do the hard work to market it and to promote myself and to do readings and workshops and speaking engagements. I want to help those people. I'm not going to get famous from this. I mean, the chances of that are very, very slim. I'm not going to get rich from this. But this is something I can do to help people who desperately need help. And that was something that was pointed out to me by Mark Malatesta, that it would be tough, not only because I don't have a strong platform, but because this is a tough topic. And he said, frankly, it's just not, a lot of agents and a lot of publishers are just not going to want to touch it. So I knew that it was going to be a tough sell. But I also know that, well, the book is written in 3 parts. Part 1 is called Rise. It's about how Alice and I fell in love and built a life together. Part 2 is called Fall, when everything starts falling apart and she starts falling, and she starts, her disease starts affecting her physically, but also intellectually and emotionally, and our life gets very, very hard. I go through bankruptcy and lose our house, and she takes her life. Part 3 is called Recovery. And that is what this book is about. It's about recovery. It's about how to rebuild one's life after traumatic loss. And I do some very, very deep work, dream work, men's work, Byron Katie's work called the Work, intense inner work. I'm in very open and vulnerable about it, because that's the work it takes to heal from loss. And that's really what the book is about, is the recovery part of it. And that, if it weren't for part 3, I don't think the book would get published. Nobody's going to want to read that much of a downer that ends with a suicide, right? But it ends with recovery, and it ends with me rebuilding my life and falling in love again, having a new life partner. So that helped me. Manisha, was that your Manjusha? Anyway, that kind of answers your question too. How was I able to keep doing this? That belief that my book can help people.
I'd just like to chime in. The reason I started my fixed and free poetry readings 18 years ago was that I felt so strongly that poetry helped me express myself, express my grief, and recover from my grief, that by providing that opportunity to other people to express themselves, whatever their challenges and griefs were, was a huge contribution to them. And that's what has kept me providing that opportunity with my fixed and free readings, and also my fixed and free anthologies and quarterly publication. So I think we're on the same wavelength, Wayne, in terms of our desire to provide opportunities for other people to heal, to express themselves, etc.
And Billy, you've been an inspiration, for me also. I honor you, and you've been so open about your loss, and you have provided these venues, these opportunities for people to share their words and their hearts, and to undergo these journeys together.
Love to you, Wayne.
You too, Billy. Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This was really helpful. Thank you so much, Wayne. I mean, I just said it's really brave of you to do this, to help people, to write this book, and also to share, your honest journey with publishing itself. Thank you for making the time to do this. I really, really appreciate it. This is going to be the last session of Writers Beyond Borders for 2024. I will be back with new presenters in 2025, but the library has a lot of online programs. We have something coming up in October, and I think Omar will be able to pull up the link for registration. We have a fiction writers panel coming up on October 9th at the same time, 10 a.m. Eastern, and he's going to put the link. It's also a free program, which any of you here want to join, please register, and then Charlotte Mecklenburg Library will send you the link, Zoom link. Thank you so, so much, everybody, for being here for us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Surabhi and Omar,
Yeah.
for your wonderful program and all that you do. And happy writing, everyone. Believe in yourself, believe in your work.
Thank you so much, Wayne.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye, guys.